Do you know why some people are obeyed before they speak? Have you noticed how certain presences silence a noisy room instantly? What if your calm face could control an entire emotional storm? Most people think influence comes from shouting louder or acting aggressive. They believe power is about constant action and visible dominance. This belief keeps them trapped in emotional chaos without real control. A ruthless aura is not about cruelty or random harshness. It is the feeling that you will not bend under pressure. People sense that your emotions will not be easily pulled. They understand on a deep level that your decisions are not negotiable. This creates silent psychological gravity around you wherever you stand. Machiavelli once said that people respect necessity more than kindness. When others feel you act from firm necessity, not fragile emotion, they stop testing you with games and manipulative behavior. They know you can walk away from approval at any moment. This is the first brick in the walls of ruthless presence. The human brain scans every new person for three silent questions. Can this person be pushed emotionally without serious resistance? Can this person be guilted into breaking their own rules? Can this person be confused by praise and fear at the same time? If the brain feels yes to these questions, influence is taken from you. If the brain feels no to these questions, influence shifts toward you. A ruthless aura trains people to answer no before they even speak. Forging this aura starts with killing your need to look nice. You do not perform politeness when it violates your inner rules. You speak less and let silence carry your decisions clearly. You respond slower, so your reactions are chosen, not automatic. Your eyes stop chasing acceptance and start observing patterns calmly. This emotional stillness feels ruthless to chaotic minds hooked on drama. Then comes the discipline of how you occupy physical space. You do not rush to fill every silence with nervous talking. You allow pauses so others must sit with their own thoughts. You stand or sit with relaxed posture, not fake confidence performance. Your body language says you are not waiting for permission to exist. This quiet ownership of space becomes part of your invisible armor. Albert Bandura once said that people learn mainly by watching others. When you hold firm boundaries without dramatic explanation, people study you quietly. They notice that you do not chase arguments to prove your goodness. They see that you can sit with disapproval without collapsing inside. Their nervous systems slowly recalibrate around your standard of emotional discipline. Your aura becomes a living lesson in controlled self-respect for everyone. A ruthless aura also shapes the way you speak to others. You remove nervous fillers that signal insecurity to sharp observers. Every sentence becomes shorter, cleaner, and weighted with intention. You say only what must be said, nothing additional for comfort. Your voice stays calm even when others rise in volume. This contrast makes your words feel heavier than their emotional noise. A ruthless presence also comes from brutal clarity about consequences. You decide in advance what lines can never be crossed. You also decide what automatic response follows when a line is touched. You never announce these rules loudly like a threat. You simply execute them consistently when someone tests your limits. Consistency builds a reputation that speaks faster than any warning. People fear uncertainty more than punishment, and your aura uses this truth. They never fully know what you will do, only that you will act. Ruthlessness in psychology means you remove emotional discounts from your decisions. You stop saying maybe to protect feelings when the answer is no. You stop giving third chances to patterns that already drained you twice. You stop delaying difficult choices that protect your long-term peace. Each strict choice feels cold at first but cleaner afterwards. Your nervous system learns that survival is more important than temporary comfort. This inner lesson leaks into your posture, your eyes, and your energy. Another layer of ruthless aura is the refusal to explain too much. Manipulators survive on your need to justify and over-explain yourself. The more words you use, the easier it becomes to twist them. So you begin to answer with short, clear, and final sentences. You replace long speeches with simple statements of what will now happen. Inside, you accept that you do not owe emotional comfort to everyone. This quiet hardness is felt by people long before they understand it. There is also the principle of calculated availability and distance. You are not present for every argument, every call, every invitation. Scarcity increases perceived value, and this also applies to your attention. When people know they can lose access to you, they behave differently. They measure their words with more care around someone who is not always reachable. Your time becomes a currency, and your aura protects that currency. Ruthless does not mean angry, it means emotionally defended and strategically cold. Anger leaks your power because it shows others your weak buttons. Cold clarity hides those buttons behind a wall of deliberate silence. You choose when to reveal emotion and when to stay unreadable. You move from reacting in seconds to replying after measured thinking. People eventually fear wasting their manipulation on someone who rarely reacts. They redirect their games toward easier minds and environments without such resistance. Dark psychology explains that most people follow the strongest emotional signal nearby. If that signal is panic, the group panics almost instantly. If that signal is calm certainty, the group slowly copies that state. When your aura communicates unshaken certainty, you become the reference point. Even those who dislike you often follow your frame against their will. They feel safer aligning with the person who seems least likely to collapse. All of this starts with one simple shift inside your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who must be liked. You begin to see yourself as guardian of your mental territory. Every interaction becomes a decision about what enters and what is refused. The more decisions you make, the thicker your psychological walls become. Energy once wasted on pleasing now reinforces your unshakable internal structure. And the more unshakable you feel, the more silently dangerous you look. But if forging this ruthless aura changes how others treat you forever, have you considered how deeply it will also change how you treat yourself? Are you prepared for the moment when your own excuses no longer work? Do you know why some people never lose control in chaotic environments? Have you noticed how certain minds stay unreadable even under pressure? What if your silence could become the strongest force in any room? Most people think a ruthless aura is built from aggression or dominance. They believe hardness comes from shouting louder or intimidating others. This misunderstanding removes their chance to access real psychological power. A ruthless aura begins in the structure of your internal discipline. It is less about what you show and more about what you refuse to show. It is created by removing the emotional leaks that reveal your weakness. People feel this difference before they understand it intellectually. The first layer of this discipline is emotional detachment from external noise. You stop letting random opinions shape your internal weather. Your calm is no longer a negotiation, but a personal rule. When someone tries to provoke you, they hit a wall of silence, not reaction. This silence feels ruthless because most minds are addicted to emotional feedback. Machiavelli once said that people obey what they cannot easily read. When your reactions are controlled, they cannot predict your next move. Uncertainty makes them cautious, and caution becomes influence. You do not force respect, you allow their fear of misjudgment to create it. The second layer is mental filtration of every incoming signal. You do not respond to every message that pulls your attention. You do not reply to every emotional pressure disguised as urgency. You observe first, then decide which signals deserve a response. This slow internal process creates an impression of deep thinking. People mistake this for coldness when it is actually mastery. Emotional manipulators always target fast reactors. They use speed to confuse you before you can analyze their intent. They push you into choosing with fear or guilt before clarity settles. A ruthless aura disables this trick by slowing the entire interaction. You move from reflex to deliberate response, and the power shifts instantly. The third layer is the calibration of your presence. Your face becomes calmer, your gestures become fewer, your breathing steadies. Your eyes stop chasing approval and begin holding neutral focus. You do not stare aggressively, you simply do not look away first. This tiny act communicates strength more than any loud display. Your presence begins to feel like a quiet psychological structure. People sense boundaries without you mentioning them. They adjust their tone in your presence without understanding why. This is silent influence created by internal order, not external force. Albert Bandura once said that people copy emotional models subconsciously. When you show low reactivity, they unconsciously slow their own reactivity. Your discipline reshapes the environment without explicit effort. This is the real meaning of psychological influence through aura. The fourth layer is the disappearance of emotional thirst. You stop chasing validation that never mattered in the first place. You stop craving constant reassurance from fragile minds. You no longer need applause to confirm your worth. This freedom creates a form of psychological gravity around you. Others feel you cannot be bought with attention or softened with flattery. This makes them treat your presence more seriously than before. The fifth layer is strategic withholding of personal information. Most people overshare without realizing the danger in their openness. Every detail you share creates a new entry point for influence. A ruthless aura comes from controlled transparency and selective revelation. You reveal only what supports your position, never what exposes your weakness. This makes people talk more while you talk less. And every word they speak becomes data for your understanding. Dark psychology explains that silence makes others reveal themselves faster. They rush to fill the empty space with their hidden intentions. They reveal their insecurities, their fears, and their motives unconsciously. You collect this data quietly while maintaining your calm exterior. Ruthlessness in this sense is not cruelty, but strategic observation. The sixth layer is emotional neutrality during manipulation attempts. When someone tests you with passive aggression, you do not respond with emotion. When someone tries guilt, you do not crumble into explanation. When someone plays victim, you do not bend into rescuing mode. Your neutrality breaks their pattern because their tactic needs your reaction. A tactic without reaction becomes useless and eventually abandoned. The seventh layer is your relationship with discomfort. Most people avoid uncomfortable truths to protect their feelings. A ruthless aura demands the opposite approach. You face discomfort directly, so it loses the power to control you. You choose difficult decisions over comfortable illusions. You tolerate silence, conflict, and detachment without panic. People fear confronting you because you are comfortable in the space they avoid. Another important element is the way you handle fear. Fear is not destroyed, it is disciplined until it becomes a tool. You observe the fear you feel without hiding from it. You ask why it appears and what it teaches about your inner structure. Your fear becomes a signal, not a master. This self-mastery radiates from your posture and your tone unconsciously. Then comes the principle of internal hierarchy. You place logic above impulse, discipline above emotion, and purpose above comfort. Your daily choices reflect this hierarchy until it becomes your identity. People sense this internal alignment because inconsistency is missing. They understand that you do not break your own rules easily. This makes your presence psychologically heavy and difficult to manipulate. A ruthless aura grows stronger when your words and actions match perfectly. You do exactly what you say without delay or excuse. You walk away when your boundary is crossed, even if it costs you. You commit to chosen paths with unwavering consistency. Others begin to believe your silence more than they believe their noise. Trust and fear mix in the minds of people who interact with you. The next layer is removing desperation from your energy. You do not chase outcomes that compromise your internal order. You do not cling to situations that reduce your self-respect. People feel the absence of desperation as quiet ruthlessness. It tells them you can leave at any moment without emotional collapse. This makes them behave more carefully than they realize. A ruthless aura is also built by understanding human weakness. You learn how insecurity drives most behavior. You learn how approval addiction shapes most decisions. You learn how fear of abandonment controls most reactions. Your awareness of these patterns protects you from being pulled into them. You rise above the emotional battlefield others drown in daily. Dark psychology reveals that influence often comes from contrast. Your calm contrasts with their chaos, so they follow your state. Your certainty contrasts with their confusion, so they seek your direction. Your lack of fear contrasts with their panic, so they cling to your frame. This is not dominance created by force, but dominance created by contrast. Each layer of ruthless aura makes you less reactive, less readable, and more grounded. People begin to treat you like someone who cannot be moved easily. And minds that cannot be moved become pillars of psychological power. But if your aura becomes this strong and this disciplined, are you ready for the weight of being the emotional reference point for everyone around you? Or will you break under the responsibility you once desired so deeply? Do you know why some minds control a room without speaking first? Have you noticed how silence becomes dangerous when held with intention? What if your stillness could override the emotions of everyone around you? A ruthless aura is not created by force, speed, or intensity. It is created by controlled absence, measured presence, and selective exposure. Most people fail to build this because they fear being misunderstood. The real foundation of ruthless presence begins with emotional compression. You stop releasing every feeling the moment you experience it. You compress your reactions into stillness until you choose the final shape. This makes your emotions become tools rather than weaknesses. People sense this compression through your posture and tone. You stop looking like someone who can be provoked into chaos. When emotional compression becomes habit, you no longer leak energy. Energy leaks are the small reactions that manipulators feed on. A slight flinch, a nervous smile, a quick justification, a rushed reply. Each one reveals more about you than you realize. Each one allows someone else to read your inner patterns. A ruthless aura prevents this because nothing leaks without permission. Machiavelli once said that a powerful mind hides intention until the moment of impact. He understood that unreadability is the highest form of protection. When people cannot read your motives, they hesitate before acting against you. Hesitation gives you the advantage long before any words are exchanged. The next stage of forging this aura is emotional monotone. Most people speak with emotional variation that reveals their inner landscape. Their tone rises when nervous, drops when guilty, sharpens when defensive. You remove this pattern by using a neutral and stable rhythm. Calm tone, slow pace, measured breath, steady delivery. This emotional monotone feels ruthless because it shows no internal chaos. People feel watched, analyzed, and exposed when facing such calm certainty. This calmness is not fake, it is engineered. You build it by practicing selective disengagement. You do not enter every debate that seeks your energy. You do not react to every challenge that demands a response. You choose to walk away from noise that does not deserve your focus. Your silence becomes heavier than their arguments. The ruthless aura grows with your ability to hold contrasting emotions. You can feel fear without acting fearful. You can feel anger without acting angry. You can feel pressure without acting pressured. You become someone whose actions no longer match your emotional storms. This mismatch confuses and intimidates emotional manipulators. They cannot calculate your breaking point when they cannot read your stress. Albert Bandura once said that internal mastery becomes external authority. When you rule yourself, people assume you can rule situations. Your discipline communicates safety and danger at the same time. Safe for those who respect boundaries, dangerous for those who cross them. The next layer is the removal of emotional negotiation. Most people soften their boundaries when asked politely. They compromise when someone shows disappointment. They change decisions when someone expresses anger. A ruthless aura removes this negotiation channel entirely. You do not adjust your decisions based on emotional pressure. You adjust only when logic or principle demands it. This removes predictable weakness that others rely on to control you. Dark psychology explains that manipulation requires 3 ingredients: predictable reactions, emotional neediness, and fear of rejection. When these ingredients disappear, manipulation collapses instantly. Your ruthless aura destroys all three without any confrontation. Then comes the principle of mental coldness. Coldness does not mean lack of empathy, it means lack of emotional impulse. You no longer react from fear, lack, or insecurity. You react only from equilibrium and calculated awareness. People sense that your mind stays cool even when theirs heats up. This difference becomes a source of silent intimidation. Coldness also shows in your decision-making. You choose long-term benefit over short-term comfort. You choose clarity over emotional decoration. You choose self-respect over temporary approval. Your choices become clean, sharp, and unbending. This creates psychological distance between you and reactive minds. One of the most powerful elements of ruthless aura is identity detachment. You stop trying to prove who you are to anyone. You stop performing competence or confidence to gain validation. You stop explaining your worth to people who already decided against you. You begin to act from inner truth rather than external performance. This detachment feels ruthless because it breaks social rules of approval. The next layer is silence used as a psychological mirror. When you hold silence after someone makes a statement, they reflect on it. They begin to doubt their own tone, words, and behavior. Silence forces them to reveal more than they planned. Silence exposes weak minds without your intervention. Your aura becomes a mirror that makes people confront themselves. Silence also resets the frame of interaction. Whoever speaks less often has more control over the direction. Whoever reacts slower controls the pace of the exchange. Whoever reveals less holds the higher ground. You become the one who defines the emotional temperature. Another key element is psychological density. This comes from living a life guided by principles rather than impulses. Principles create weight, impulses create noise. When you move with principles, people feel the weight of your presence. Your decisions feel final, your boundaries feel real, your standards feel solid. People instinctively treat you with more seriousness than before. Ruthless aura is also shaped by your relationship to discomfort and conflict. You do not avoid tension when it is necessary for clarity. You do not soften your tone to protect fragile egos. You do not hide your truth to prevent temporary discomfort. Your tolerance for conflict creates fear in those who rely on emotional dominance. They cannot win battles you are not afraid to fight. Dark psychology shows that people test boundaries until they meet resistance. Most people give soft resistance and hope it will be enough. A ruthless aura gives quiet but absolute resistance, the kind that does not need volume, anger, or threats. Your presence communicates that pushing further will have consequences. This prevents most attempts before they begin. The next layer is behavioral consistency. You are disciplined in the same way across all environments. You do not collapse your standards for attention or comfort. You do not pretend strength one day and seek validation the next. Your stability becomes a psychological message that you cannot be moved easily. People trust and fear consistency more than confidence. Your ruthlessness also shows in your refusal to entertain emotional traps. You do not respond to guilt tricks that demand instant explanation. You do not fall for praise traps that seek to lower your guard. You do not get pulled into arguments designed to exhaust your clarity. Your awareness becomes a shield that makes manipulation feel impossible. And the more you practice these layers, the more your aura changes. People start to treat you differently without knowing why. Their tone softens, their posture changes, their words become cautious. Your presence becomes a system they cannot override. But if your aura becomes this unreadable and this disciplined, can you handle the isolation that comes with being untouchable? Or will your own strength become the silence you fear the most? Do you know why some people feel dangerous without raising their voice? Have you noticed how certain minds create pressure only by existing? What if your calm presence could interrupt the thoughts of everyone near you? A ruthless aura becomes powerful when your internal world becomes untouchable. Most people try to control others before they control themselves. This is why their influence collapses the moment emotions rise. True ruthlessness begins with internal order, so clean that chaos cannot enter. You remove emotional shortcuts that people use to pull your reactions. You remove the need for constant reassurance that weakens your presence. You remove the habit of explaining yourself to minds that already decided. Your aura becomes sharper each time you choose stillness over panic. People sense that their opinion does not shape your behavior. They realize you do not bend under emotional weight. This realization changes how they speak to you instantly. Machiavelli once said that authority is given to those who walk with certainty. Certainty is not loudness, it is inner alignment. When your inner world is aligned, your outer presence becomes unshakable. The first layer in this stage is emotional depth control. Most people let emotions rise to the surface the moment they appear. Your aura becomes ruthless when emotions remain deep until chosen. You feel everything but reveal almost nothing. Your depth becomes invisible water that others cannot measure. This uncertainty makes people cautious around you without understanding why. The second layer is focus discipline. A scattered mind creates a scattered aura. Your focus becomes precise because you train it to lock onto priorities. You stop reacting to distractions that aim to drain your mental clarity. Your attention becomes selective and heavy. When you look at something, people feel the weight of your observation. When you ignore something, people feel its insignificance. Focus discipline sends a silent message. Your attention is expensive, and you do not waste it. People treat you with seriousness because you treat your focus seriously. The third layer is strategic emotional distance. You do not attach yourself to every voice that demands your energy. You stop rewarding emotional volatility with instant response. You stop rescuing people who use weakness as bait. You stop giving comfort to minds that weaponize their pain. Distance becomes your filter and your protection. Albert Bandura once said that emotional modeling creates invisible hierarchies. When you maintain distance, others automatically adjust their emotional behavior. They tone down their chaos because your calm becomes the reference point. You are not controlling them, but they feel compelled to regulate around you. The fourth layer is the mastery of emotional neutrality. Neutrality is not emptiness, it is controlled expression. You choose when to show warmth and when to remain unreadable. People cannot predict your emotional direction. This unpredictability creates psychological elevation. They treat you with caution because they do not know what moves you. Neutrality breaks manipulation because manipulation needs emotional reaction. Without reaction, the manipulator is exposed without effort. The fifth layer is the concept of internal solitude. Most people feel panic in moments of inner silence. They fear their own mind, so they escape into noise. A ruthless aura requires comfort in solitude. You must learn to sit with your thoughts without distraction. You must learn to hear your fears without running away. You must learn to feel your insecurity without collapsing into validation seeking. Solitude builds the psychological frame that others cannot bend. Internal solitude creates an aura of someone who cannot be emotionally bribed. People respect and fear those who stand strong even when alone. The sixth layer is the elimination of emotional debt. Emotional debt forms when you carry responsibilities that are not yours. You reduce this debt by refusing to solve problems created by others. You stop carrying guilt that does not belong to you. You stop accepting blame that was planted in your mind. You stop sacrificing your peace for people who would never do the same. This elimination creates the cold clarity that defines ruthless presence. Dark psychology teaches that emotional debt is used as silent manipulation. When you remove it, you become mentally expensive and emotionally unreachable. The seventh layer is the principle of slow dominance. Slow dominance is influence that grows through consistent restraint. You do not rush to prove your power or your intelligence. You let time expose your strength because time reveals all weakness. People learn your value by observing your discipline. The longer they watch, the higher your psychological authority becomes. Slow dominance feels dangerous because it requires no announcement. Silence becomes your introduction. Certainty becomes your language. Restraint becomes your signal. The eighth layer is calibrated coldness. Calibrated coldness does not reject people, it filters them. You offer warmth only to minds that respect your boundaries. You offer neutrality to minds that test your discipline. You offer distance to minds that drain your peace. You offer silence to minds that try to control you. Your aura becomes predictable in principle, but unpredictable in emotion. This calibrated coldness makes people think before they speak to you. They understand that access to your softness is earned, not expected. The ninth layer is identity immovability. You cannot forge a ruthless aura if your identity shifts with environment. Most people mirror the mindset around them. A ruthless mind keeps internal identity consistent. You do not change tone to please the loudest voice. You do not shift personality to match unstable minds. You do not break boundaries to avoid discomfort. Your identity becomes a constant signal in a world of emotional noise. Identity immovability creates a presence that feels stable and grounded. People respect stability more than confidence because stability is rare. The 10th layer is the removal of emotional shortcuts. Emotional shortcuts are habits that create temporary comfort but long-term weakness. Constant reassurance seeking, impulsive reaction, emotional oversharing, approval addiction. You dismantle each shortcut by replacing it with discipline. You choose long-term clarity over short-term relief. You choose silence over reaction. You choose observation over assumption. You choose principle over impulse. Each choice thickens your aura. Each decision adds weight to your presence. Ruthless aura also grows through the way you deal with emotional storms. You do not panic when uncertainty rises. You do not collapse when pressure increases. You regulate your breathing, your tone, your posture. People feel this regulation more than they hear your words. Their nervous systems copy your stability without knowing. Dark psychology reveals that direction comes from the calmest mind in chaos. Your aura becomes this direction. You become the mental anchor for unstable minds. They follow your emotional temperature because yours is colder and clearer. Each layer of Part 4 creates an aura that feels heavy but controlled. People instinctively treat you with respect and caution. Your silence becomes authority, your distance becomes clarity, your discipline becomes influence. But when your aura becomes this steady and unreadable, are you prepared for the moment people stop testing you and start fearing you? Or will the fear you create become another force you must learn to master? Do you know why some minds never reveal their breaking point? Have you noticed how certain people stay powerful even when surrounded by chaos? What if your inner discipline could make others doubt their own strength? A ruthless aura reaches its advanced stage when your mind becomes strategically cold. Not cruel, not numb, but controlled in a way that removes emotional shortcuts. Most people fail here because discipline feels heavier than chaos. The first element in this stage is cognitive detachment. Detachment is not distance from life, it is distance from emotional control. You observe every situation with a slight separation from impulse. This separation protects you from emotional contamination. Insults lose power, praise loses control, fear loses direction. Your mind becomes a clean lens rather than a cracked mirror. Machiavelli once said that a person who cannot govern their mind cannot govern anything. Detachment is the beginning of that governance. When you detach from impulse, you detach from manipulation. The second element is emotional architecture. Most people build their identity on unstable foundations. They build it on approval, validation, and the fear of rejection. You rebuild your identity on internal logic and personal principle. Your emotional house stands even when storms hit. People sense this stability and instinctively respect it. The third element is psychological compression. You no longer reveal stress the moment it appears. You compress pressure into silence until clarity forms. This confuses reactive minds who expect instant emotional leakage. Your unbroken posture becomes a silent message. It tells others you cannot be swayed by their emotional weight. Albert Bandura once said that strength is learned by modeling the strongest mind nearby. When your presence becomes stable, others unconsciously model themselves after you. Your aura teaches without speaking. The fourth element is response minimalism. You say less than most people expect. Not because you are hiding, but because your words are deliberate. Every sentence carries intention, not impulse. You remove unnecessary explanation that weakens your authority. You remove emotional decoration that invites manipulation. Your minimalism becomes a psychological boundary. Silence becomes your filter. Pause becomes your weapon. Clarity becomes your defense. The fifth element is tension tolerance. A ruthless aura demands the ability to remain calm under rising pressure. You do not rush to smooth conflict to protect feelings. You do not beg for harmony when tension is necessary for truth. You sit with discomfort until it reveals the hidden motives of people. Your tolerance makes others reveal themselves before they realize it. Dark psychology explains that people show their real nature under tension. When you remain calm, they unravel faster and expose deeper patterns. The sixth element is strategic invisibility. You do not need to be the loudest or most visible mind. You operate beneath the noise while observing everything clearly. You speak at the right time, not the first time. You withdraw when the room becomes emotionally contaminated. Your absence becomes as powerful as your presence. Strategic invisibility confuses people. They do not know what you're thinking or planning. This mystery increases your psychological weight. The seventh element is emotional independence. You do not rely on others to stabilize your mind. You build internal grounding that does not shake easily. Your mood no longer changes according to someone else's behavior. This independence is rare, and it intimidates fragile minds. They cannot influence someone who does not need them emotionally. The eighth element is the discipline of deliberate posture. Your body signals what your words do not say. You sit or stand with relaxed control, not forced confidence. Your shoulders drop, your breath slows, your gaze stays steady. Your posture tells people you are not seeking approval. It also tells them you are not intimidated. This combination creates quiet authority. The ninth element is psychological scarcity. Scarcity creates value in the human brain. Your attention becomes rare, your reactions become rare, your presence becomes rare. People begin to measure their words differently around you. They choose their tone carefully. They avoid unnecessary conflict. They respect your boundaries because access to you feels limited. The 10th element is emotional filtration. You filter every incoming signal through clarity rather than emotion. You ask what someone wants, what pattern they follow, what intention they hide. You ask why they speak, not just what they say. You decode their tone, timing, and subtle pressure. This filtration prevents emotional traps long before they close. Dark psychology reveals that most manipulation operates through emotional shortcuts. When you filter everything, shortcuts fail immediately. The 11th element is reputation of consistency. Your aura becomes stronger not from one act, but from repeated discipline. People learn that you do not break your own rules. They learn that your boundaries are real, not decorative. They learn that you follow through without emotion clouding your logic. Consistency becomes a silent warning. The 12th element is removal of desperation. Desperation is the smell emotional predators look for. You eliminate it by removing the need to be accepted by everyone. You eliminate it by creating your own inner validation. You eliminate it by acting from principle, not fear. A mind without desperation becomes psychologically dangerous. The 13th element is the principle of quiet refusal. You decline emotional demands without explanation. You say no with calm tone and steady posture. This creates psychological distance without conflict. People adjust themselves because they cannot move you emotionally. The 14th element is the understanding of human fragility. You learn that insecurity drives most behavior. You learn that fear shapes most decisions. You learn that validation controls most reactions. This knowledge prevents you from being pulled into emotional chaos. Your understanding becomes protection. The 15th element is the cold precision of boundaries. Boundaries are not spoken, they are acted upon. When someone crosses a line, you do not argue. You change access, change tone, or change proximity. Your response is clean and immediate. This cold precision teaches others not to test you twice. The 16th element is the aura of emotional weight. You create this weight by living with principle instead of impulse. Your actions become predictable in discipline, but unpredictable in emotion. People feel your presence even in silence. They adjust their behavior because your aura demands alignment. And when all these elements merge, your ruthless presence becomes complete. You no longer chase influence. Influence is shaped by your existence. Your calm becomes power, your silence becomes direction, your discipline becomes dominance. But if you reach this stage, where your aura shapes entire environments, are you ready for the moment when your own shadow begins to test you? Or will the weight of your power reveal a weakness you thought you eliminated? Do you know why some people gain power even when they say nothing? Have you noticed how certain minds create tension without any aggression? What if your very existence could force others to reveal their truth? A ruthless aura reaches completion when your internal world becomes fully disciplined. Not emotionally numb, not disconnected, but purified of weakness and noise. This is where silent influence becomes your natural state of being. The first element in this final stage is psychological permanence. Your aura no longer depends on mood, environment, or approval. You carry the same calm weight everywhere you go. People feel it before you speak and adjust themselves without instruction. Your presence becomes a psychological climate rather than an individual stance. The second element is emotional opacity. No one can read your intention unless you choose to reveal it. You express warmth only when it aligns with your principle. You express firmness only when clarity demands it. You remain unreadable in all moments that require neutrality. Opaque emotion prevents manipulation because manipulators rely on prediction. Machiavelli once said that a hidden mind becomes the strongest mind in any court. Your opacity creates this effect in modern environments. People cannot calculate your reaction, so they avoid testing you. The third element is inner hierarchy becoming instinct. You no longer choose logic over impulse. You naturally operate that way. You no longer choose self-respect over comfort. It becomes reflex. You no longer choose discipline over chaos. It becomes your default identity. Your aura is unstoppable because you stopped negotiating with your own emotions. The fourth element is controlled vulnerability. Most people show vulnerability to feel connected. You show it intentionally, rarely, and only to minds that earned your trust. This selective vulnerability makes your softness heavier than others, strength. It becomes a signal of depth, not fragility. People respect what they rarely see and fear losing access to it. Albert Bandura once said that a stable mind becomes the anchor others rely on. Your discipline turns you into that anchor. People feel safer around you, even when they cannot understand why. The fifth element is emotional resistance. You no longer react to provocation, pressure, fear, or guilt. Your mind refuses to lose balance even when someone tries to disrupt it. Your stability exposes their instability. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your clarity exposes their confusion. This contrast creates authority without effort. The sixth element is the mastery of silence. Silence becomes your strongest tool because it forces others inward. It creates reflection, tension, and psychological spotlight. People reveal their motives during silence. People expose their lies during silence. People adjust their behavior during silence. Your silence becomes a controlled environment that others cannot escape. The seventh element is the discipline of unavailability. You are accessible but never predictable. You give attention but never cheaply. You offer your presence, but never without standards. This scarcity makes your aura feel rare and valuable. People treat rare minds with care because they fear losing access. The eighth element is behavioral finality. You do not repeat decisions you already outgrew. You do not return to patterns that once weakened you. You do not negotiate boundaries that protect your peace. Your decisions stand like stone. Finality creates the kind of respect that no argument can achieve. The ninth element is psychological elevation. You rise above emotional games that trap ordinary minds. You stop fighting battles that are beneath your discipline. You stop seeking validation from unstable personalities. Your elevation makes people mirror their best behavior around you. They cannot descend into chaos when your presence sets the tone. The 10th element is emotional strategic awareness. You see motives faster than words form. You decode tone before meaning appears. You read fear, envy, insecurity, and hidden intent with clarity. This awareness gives you psychological vision others lack. You navigate environments by understanding what people hide, not what they show. The 11th element is the aura of consequence. You do not threaten, you do not warn, you do not announce. Your reputation handles it. People know that crossing your boundary changes the entire relationship. This knowledge keeps most manipulation attempts away from you. Fear of consequence becomes influence without effort. The 12th element is emotional equilibrium. Your internal world stays balanced regardless of external storms. You are no longer moved by sudden praise or sudden criticism. You are no longer affected by emotional pressure or emotional silence. You are no longer caught between fear and desire. You exist in controlled balance that others cannot shake. The 13th element is inner sovereignty. You own your thoughts. You own your decisions. You own your emotions. No one else governs your mind. This sovereignty is the final requirement of a ruthless aura. It is the moment when you stop being influenced and start influencing effortlessly. Dark psychology explains that true dominance is silent, stable, and internal. Your aura becomes the blueprint others follow. Your discipline becomes the measure they compare themselves against. Your presence becomes the unseen force that shapes behavior. And for the first time, you understand the truth. A ruthless aura was never about looking dangerous. It was about removing every weakness that made you manipulable. It was about building a mind no one could bend. It was about becoming a presence that changes the environment silently. You do not rule people, you rule yourself. And people follow those who rule themselves completely. But now that your aura is forged and your influence is silent and powerful, the only remaining question is this. You built a mind no one can control. Can you handle the responsibility of what you will become after this transformation?